My name is Claire Donovan, and when I came back home after 3 weeks of vacation, my name wasn't on the building directory anymore. Just an empty slot, where there used to be a brass plate that read, C. Donovan, Apt 4B. Now there was nothing. I stood there in the lobby, suitcase in hand, staring at it like it was some kind of mistake. But it wasn't. My mother was waiting outside the building. Forced smile, arms crossed. And my brother Dylan? Leaning against a brand new white BMW that definitely wasn't his 3 weeks ago. Twirling the keys around his finger, like he owned the world. You're back early, my mother said. It wasn't a question. It was almost an accusation. I looked up at the 4th floor. The balcony that used to be mine. Different curtains. Someone else's plants on the railing. And then my brother smiled, that smile I'd known since we were kids. The smile of someone who knows they've done something terrible and doesn't care. Bad news. Genius. You don't live here anymore. I didn't answer. Just looked around slowly. They laughed. Like it was a joke that had been waiting too long to be told. We sold the apartment, Claire. We needed to pay off your brother's debts. You were gone too long. $120,000. That was the hole Dylan had dug for himself. Online casinos, loans from loan sharks, ridiculous investments in crypto coins that didn't even exist anymore. And they sold my apartment to save him. I should have screamed, cried, begged. That's what they expected. But I just smiled. A small smile. Almost invisible. What's so funny? I looked up at the balcony where I used to sit as a kid, watching my father leave for work every morning. And I said, nothing. I'm just realizing how poetic all of this is. Because what they didn't know, while they laughed in my face, while they celebrated the money they stole from me, is that I already knew. I'd known for 6 months. And this time, I wasn't going to forgive. Let me take you back. 6 months before that moment in the lobby. 6 months before they thought they'd gotten away with it. It was a Tuesday night. I was in my apartment in Seattle, going through my emails after a long shift at the hospital. I'm a nurse practitioner. I work 12-hour shifts, sometimes more. Every dollar I've ever made, I earned with my own hands. That's when I saw it. An email notification from the county clerk's office. Property records access log, multiple inquiries. Someone had been looking up my apartment. The deed. The mortgage information. The tax records. The IP address. Traced back to my mother's house in Ohio. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Maybe she was just curious. Maybe she wanted to see how much equity I'd built up. But then I remembered. My mother never cared about my accomplishments, only Dylan's failures. Growing up, it was always the same pattern. Dylan would mess up, crash the car, get suspended from school, blow his college fund on partying, and I'd be the one expected to be understanding. To help out. To remember that family comes first. I paid off his credit card debt when I was 23. $15,000. Money I'd saved from working 2 jobs during nursing school. I co-signed his car loan when I was 26. He defaulted after 4 months. I paid it off. Another $12,000. And every single time, my mother would hug him and tell him, it's okay, we all make mistakes. But me. When I asked them to help with my medical school application fees, $300, my mother said I should learn to be more independent. So when I saw those access logs, something in my gut told me this wasn't curiosity. This was planning. I hired a digital forensics specialist. Cost me $2,000, but it was worth every penny. What we found made my blood run cold. My mother had been accessing my property records for 3 months. Not just looking, downloading, mortgage documents, deed transfers, tax assessments, everything you'd need to sell a property. But here's the thing, you can't just sell someone else's apartment. You need their signature, their authorization, unless you forge it. I flew back to Ohio the next weekend, told my parents I was just visiting, smiled through dinner, watched Dylan brag about his latest investment opportunity, some NFT scheme that was obviously a scam. My mother kept glancing at me, like she was waiting for me to offer money. I didn't. That night, I went through my father's old study. He passed away 7 years ago. Heart attack. The one good parent I had, and he was gone before I turned 25. In his desk, I found something that changed everything. A folder, hidden in the back of the bottom drawer. Inside, copies of documents, my birth certificate, my social security card, my old passport, and a power of attorney form. Blank. Unsigned. But someone had traced my signature on the practice sheet paper clipped to it. They were preparing to forge my consent. I took photos of everything. Then I put it all back exactly as I found it. And I went back to Seattle. The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. Not because of what they were planning to do, but because I had to let them do it. Every fiber of my being wanted to confront them, to scream, to ask how they could do this to their own daughter. But I knew, if I confronted them too early, they'd just deny everything, change the plan, find another way to betray me. No, I needed evidence, legal, undeniable, prosecutable evidence. So I watched. And I waited. I set up alerts on my property. Any change, any filing, any inquiry, I'd know immediately. I transferred the actual deed to a holding company I'd created years ago for tax purposes. The apartment, legally, was owned by Donovan Property Holdings, LLC. My name was on the company, but to access the property, you'd need the company seal, the corporate documents my mother didn't have. What she did have was access to the old registration, the one from when I first bought the place, before the refinancing, before the LLC transfer. On paper, to someone who didn't know what they were looking for, it looked like I still owned it personally. So I let her think that's what she was stealing. In May, I got the notification I'd been waiting for. Property title search requested, Donovan, C. The buyer was listed as Midwest Property Solutions, LLC. I ran the company, Shell Corporation, registered 3 weeks earlier. Owner, listed as my mother. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. 2 days later, she called me. Claire, honey, Dylan's in some trouble. He owes some dangerous people. We need to help him. I played dumb. How much? 120,000. I said I didn't have that kind of money, which was true. I had savings, but not that much liquid. She sighed, like I was the disappointment. Well, we'll figure something out. Family always does. That's when I knew. She wasn't asking for help. She was telling me what she'd already decided to do. I called my lawyer the next morning, explained everything. He was horrified. Claire, this is fraud. Identity theft. You could have them arrested right now. Not yet, I said. I need them to complete the sale. I need the paper trail to be ironclad. We created a second company, Summit Acquisitions Group. I hired an actor, a real estate agent I'd worked with on a previous investment, to play the buyer. His instructions were simple. Follow the sale process exactly as my mother directed. Act like a legitimate buyer. Pay with a cashier's check. But the check It was from my account, routed through the company. Every dollar traceable. In June, I got another call from my mother. We found a buyer for an investment property. The paperwork's almost done. Investment property. My apartment was now an investment property. I asked which property. She hesitated. Just something your father and I had been holding on to. A lie. My father never owned property with her. Everything he had, he put in a trust for me. She spent years resenting that. Dad knew. Even back then, he knew what she was. I told her I was happy for her, that I hoped it helped Dylan. She sounded relieved. You're such a good sister, Claire. A good sister. In July, I booked a 3-week vacation. Told my family I was going to Europe. Off the grid. No phone service. In reality, I was in a hotel 40 minutes from my parents' house. Watching. Waiting. Documenting. My lawyer had hired a private investigator. We recorded every meeting between my mother and the buyer. Every forged signature. Every falsified document. Every lie. By the time I came back from vacation, we had everything we needed. So there I was, standing in the lobby of my old building, my mother smiling, Dylan spinning his car keys. And me. I was smiling too. What's so funny? I looked at my mother. When did you finalize the sale? She puffed up with pride. Last week. Got a great price too. Cash in hand. The buyer's name was… I know, I interrupted. I recommended him. Dylan's smile faded. What? I pulled out my phone, opened a document, handed it to my mother. Read it. Her hands shook as she read. Her face went white. This says the property was transferred to a holding company 2 years ago. Correct, I said. What the hell does that mean? It means the apartment you sold wasn't mine. Not legally. The title you used? Outdated. Invalid. The sale you made? Fraudulent. You're bluffing. I smiled. Am I? I pressed play on my phone. Their voices filled the air. A recording from 2 weeks ago. She'll never know until she comes back. By then, it'll be done. What if she tries to fight it? With what? We have the deed. We have her signature. She's been gone too long. No one will believe her. Silence. That signature you forged? I have the original practice sheets you used. From Dad's desk. The buyer you sold to? He works for my legal team. The money you received? Marked. Traceable. Evidence. Claire, please. Every access log. Every forged document. Every lie. I have it all. You set us up. I set you up? You stole my home. You forged my name. You committed fraud. And you did it smiling. I just made sure you'd face consequences for it. My mother tried to hug me, tears streaming down her face. We're family, she sobbed. You can't do this to family. I stepped back. You stopped being my family the moment you chose him over me. Again. Dylan didn't say anything, just stared at the ground. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to say. I'd filed the report that morning. Fraud. Forgery. Identity theft. The police arrived within 10 minutes. I didn't watch them being taken away. I didn't need to. Instead, I walked 3 blocks down the street, to the building where my actual apartment was. The one I'd bought 6 months ago. Under the LLC. With the money from my real investments. Same neighborhood. Better view. I stepped inside. The movers had already brought my furniture from storage. Everything exactly where I wanted it. People always ask me if I regret it. Turning in my own family. The truth. I don't think about them at all anymore. My mother got 3 years probation and community service. The judge was lenient because of her age. Dylan got 18 months in county jail. Turns out, he had other warrants, other debts, other victims. The dangerous people he owed money to? They were online poker sites. He was never in any real danger. It was all a lie, another manipulation, another test of how much I'd sacrifice for them. But here's what I learned. Love doesn't mean letting people destroy you. Family doesn't mean being someone's permanent safety net while they drown you. And forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't for people who aren't sorry. It's for people who've changed. My brother sent me a letter from jail. 2 pages of excuses. Blamed his addiction. Blamed his friends. Blamed the economy. Never once said, "I'm sorry for what I did to you." My mother tried to call 47 times in the first month. I blocked her number. Some people think that makes me cold, heartless. But you know what? I sleep better now than I have in years. No more 2 a.m. calls begging for money. No more guilt trips about family obligations. No more setting myself on fire to keep them warm. I'm 32 now. 3 years since that day in the lobby. I've been promoted twice. I'm seeing someone, a good man who actually values what I bring to his life. And my apartment, still mine. Legally. Completely. Forever. They taught me something valuable, in the end. That sometimes the price of your peace is walking away from people who only see you as a resource. And that's not cruelty. That's survival. My name is Claire Donovan, and this is the story of how I learned that the family you choose for yourself is worth more than the one you were born into.